One misconception is PR is just for big companies. Crisis preparedness doesn't really matter if you're just a small mom and pop shop. No matter your size, you're one bad review, one employee incident away from having a real reputation problem.
Welcome to the Path to Owning It podcast by Provide, hosted by me, Corey Brown, a marketing leader at Provide with over a decade in supporting small businesses. Whether you're an aspiring or established founder, here you'll find tools and advice to start building your legacy and take your business to new heights. To help you achieve your entrepreneurial ambitions, each month we'll tap into our unparalleled network of industry experts who will join us on our quest to provide the answers to your most pressing questions. Like what you hear? Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen. Today, I'd like to welcome Lauren Parker, who is an expert in strategic communications planning, earned media, executive thought leadership, crisis and reputation management, and brand building. In her role as co-owner and CEO of Slide 9, she guides the agency's business strategy and growth while personally leading key client relationships, drawing on more than 15 years of experience, including significant tenures at well-known agencies in New York City. Lauren's contributions to the industry have been recognized through accolades such as Columbus Business First's 40 Under 40 and PR News' 15 PR Professionals to Watch. Lauren, welcome to our show. We're so thrilled to have you here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's quite an impressive background. Can you share a little bit more about what led you to specialize in public relations and crisis management?
Yeah, absolutely. I studied communication. I've always been a storyteller at heart, and I thought if I have to have a job, I'd like it to be centered around storytelling. And true story, graduated from college with a communications degree on a Sunday and packed up and moved to New York City the very next day.
Wow.
I didn't have a
people
job.
actually do that, huh?
People actually do that. And
That's
it worked
amazing.
out. Yes. So knowing that I wanted to be in the communications and PR field, I wanted to be in the big city where all the reporters were based. And it was a great opportunity for me to cut my teeth working at some large agencies where I was able to help shape strategy and storytelling narratives for businesses in the B2B and the B2C space, working with brands and organizations from BMW to TGI Fridays, gave me a really, really broad opportunity to learn about a lot of different industries, the specific nuances and intricacies of their businesses and how to reach the different audiences that they were trying to influence. So again, yeah, it just all comes down to helping to shape stories that people really care about and want to interact with.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm so glad we have you with us because I think you're going to be the perfect person to share your expertise with us. And our small business owners, this episode's all about how to build resilient PR strategies, mainly for crisis situations. So can you share what are some common misconceptions small business owners might have about PR and crisis communication?
Yeah. I know I mentioned a couple of the brands that I've worked with are big global household names, but I think one misconception is really that PR is just for big companies. Crisis preparedness doesn't really matter if you're just a small mom and pop shop. And I really think that no matter your size, you're one bad review, one product issue, one employee incident away from having a real reputation problem. So that's one misperception. Another is that PR is just media coverage. It's just getting a reporter to write a great story about your business. But in reality, it's really about building trust and credibility in the good times and in the bad times. And that's why it's really important to have that plan. Because the third misconception, I think, is we'll just figure it out when we get there. It's,
Right.
we don't know what's going to come our way, so why spend time planning now? But brands and organizations that have really weathered those types of storms are the ones that did so with speed and with clarity. And oftentimes they were able to do that because they were planful and were able to meet the moment.
Yeah. And we've been mentioning crisis communication a few times already. Can you explain exactly what do we mean by that for small business and how is it different from PR in general?
Sure. Yeah, I'll answer that in reverse. So when we're talking about public relations, it is really about two-way communication. It's about how brands and organizations are reaching out and connecting with either current or prospective customers, employees. In some cases, there might be community influencers or regulatory bodies. It's really looking at all of those external groups that may have some stake in the ground when it comes to what your business does or offers, what problem or solution you are tackling on a daily basis. So again, PR is everything from how you're presenting your organization across your website and your social media channels. It's also about how you are proactively being out in the community and being in front of the people that matter most. It's about getting that earned media and having journalists really see what value you have to offer and what expertise you, as either a business owner or a subject matter expert, have that is timely and relevant. So crisis communication, what I had just talked about is really what are the communication strategies and tactics when things are going great, or at least just business as usual.
Yeah.
Crisis communication is really when something has gone unplanned and that there is some significant threat to your company's reputation. And so when we as communicators then have to pivot into crisis communication mode, it's really about reprioritizing when, where, and how you're communicating with those audiences, because you don't want to seem tone deaf. You don't want to seem like you're not paying attention to the issue. So it is about really putting pause on the things that you maybe normally would do when it comes to posting on your social media channels about a sale or highlighting an employee, and really making sure that all of your communication focus is centered on addressing the matter at hand and talking about how you are mitigating the issue and how you are really doing right by whoever is impacted by the incident or matter at hand.
Yeah. And I think we've seen some examples of that as social media is so prevalent, right? Where these somewhat small situations can really grow into a big issue. And I guess that's my next question too, is you mentioned this a little bit before, but small business owners, they're juggling so much, just trying to keep their head above water a lot of times, right? So really taking time and effort to create a crisis preparedness plan, where should that fall in priority compared to all the other things they have to do on a daily basis?
Well, as a small business owner myself, I can totally relate to that scenario you just mentioned. You have so many hats you have to wear as a small business owner. You want to make sure that the day-to-day operations of your business are running smoothly, that your employees are being taken care of, that you're thinking about your customers every single day. And what I share with my peers is a crisis, and maybe crisis is an extreme terminology. Maybe we just talk about issue or incident.
Sure.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so just as you are proactive in managing cash flow and administering your employee performance reviews, making sure that you have a really solid crisis response plan or even incident response plan is really important, because doing that planning now is ultimately going to save you time, stress, and likely revenue.
Yeah. And I think we've seen some examples of that as social media is so prevalent, right? Where these somewhat small situations can really grow into a big issue. And I guess that's my next question too, is you mentioned this a little bit before, but small business owners, they're juggling so much, just trying to keep their head above water a lot of times, right? So really taking time and effort to create a crisis preparedness plan, where should that fall in priority compared to all the other things they have to do on a daily basis?
Sure, a crisis preparedness plan might seem really big, bulky, overwhelming, this folder that you have to keep on a shelf. It really can be a very straightforward document that really just gives you a jumping off point. Because again, you could have an infinite list of the possible scenarios that you might come across. You want to really be realistic. So think about the top 3 most likely scenarios that your business might face, depending on the industry that you're in, the type of work that you do. Are you likely to have cybersecurity challenges? Maybe an employee misconduct incident? If you're in, say, the construction space where safety at the workplace is a real concern, really think about what are the most likely scenarios that you might face, or maybe even think back historically. What are some of those things that you have encountered that maybe you weren't as prepared, and knowing that it might happen again, how can you be more planful and take some of those lessons learned? So just putting down on paper what those likely scenarios are is a really great place to start. Then it's really thinking about your message clarity. And in times of crisis, authenticity is really important. A lot of times, especially if you're not as seasoned in the communication space, when things do go wrong, there's this very natural inclination to not say anything. We're not going to address it. If we don't look at it. If we don't speak to it, we're not going to bring it into existence. But it is that transparency and authenticity that is really important. So I always encourage small business owners to just have some baseline messaging about your values and how you like to speak to your audience that is really authentic. That really becomes your foundation. That's where every scenario is going to be unique. And so you're not going to be able to have a full script written out. But again, just having a couple of those talking points about, hey, as a business, we are absolutely committed to equity and access to healthcare, or we are committed to the safety and well-being of our employees and our customers. Really try to ground yourself in whatever those core values are, that when you do speak out in times of crisis, your audience is going to say, you know what, they're always talking about that. They've really demonstrated that. And I can see that even though something hasn't gone well, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because the way that they're handling this is really credible. And then the third thing that I would say to keep in your crisis plan really is just an outline of the roles and responsibilities. So it is more of the operational. When something hits the fan, who needs to be informed? Who is going to make the decisions? And what are the channels that you have at your fingertips to be able to communicate? Are you planning to use social media? Do you have an email list of your customers? So it may seem basic and tactical, but it really is, how are we going to manage this? Who needs to be involved and who needs to make the decisions? So having those three things, that scenario planning, message clarity, and the roles and responsibilities. If you have those three things down on paper, you are going to be far ahead of the game when something goes sideways.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for boiling that down for us. Who would you say is typically involved besides the business owner in crisis planning and execution in a small organization?
It's going to depend in terms of the size and structure of any given organization. But to your point, if the owner or founder is active in the day-to-day operations of the business, I think they would tend to play that role. If the owner is maybe not as tied to it, you would want to have someone who has that operational oversight. And then if your organization is large enough or structured as such that you do have a communications or marketing function within the organization, then having that lead, I think, should be having a seat at the table. And whether that's somebody that is in-house and part of your leadership team, or if maybe you have even an external partner, what you don't want is to make every single crisis or issue everybody's problem.
Yeah.
So again, I think having a more tight-knit group that can at least assess the situation, determine the level of severity, and make decisions faster, and ultimately help to weather the storm.
Yeah. And to your point about not making it everybody's problem, what are some best practices for communicating with employees during a crisis, in your opinion?
Absolutely. When we're speaking in generalities, it's tricky because if the matter at hand is something that is not widely known or visible to your organization, you don't want to elicit panic or drive gossip or speculation. So if you do find yourself in a situation where the time has come that you do need to let your employees know what's happening and what you're doing about it, again, lean into what feels familiar to your organization. So if you already have a standing meeting, an all-team meeting, and that timing wise makes sense for you to be able to share that news live, I would recommend you go that route. If you have maybe distributed teams and you've got folks that are not necessarily all sitting in the same office, think about scheduling a virtual conversation to get people together. Oftentimes, you want to go in the direction of maybe more of a formal email coming from the CEO. Depending on what the incident is, we always try to counsel our clients to be as human as possible. So I'm typically of the mind that you want to have some sort of live opportunity to share the details of both what happened, what we know, and what we're doing about it. That's sort of the sweet spot, especially early in terms of a crisis, to let people know this is the situation, this is the information we have, or here's what we are trying to figure out, and here's what we're going to do to resolve this situation. If you can get those talking points out as early as possible, I think you're going to get the credibility of your employees who are going to be your strongest brand ambassadors and hopefully will be the ones that will be speaking up and saying, hey, even though we had a cybersecurity hack or we had a product recall or whatever it may be, you want your employees to feel empowered to say, yeah, but I'm on the inside and I see that they are actually holding up their end of the bargain. They're doing the right thing. And I still have that faith in our leadership. That's going to be best case scenario. So you don't want to overshare or give folks anything that's going to lead to any sort of confusion or leave room for questioning. But you do want to give them the confidence that you are doing the right thing and moving the business forward in the right direction.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think that idea of doing what's familiar makes so much sense in your organization. So, we've covered some essential strategies for developing your crisis communication plan and the importance of being prepared. Now, as we shift gears, we'll dive into a topic that's become increasingly critical for small businesses, and that's how to handle fake and false reviews online and protect your reputation. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the short break. Are you fresh out of school with big dreams and ambition to achieve them? Or is your current business bursting at the seams and it's time to expand your legacy? If you tend to challenge the status quo and shoot for the moon, Provide's SBA loan may be for you. Our dedicated team of small business experts will work with you to make your ownership dreams, no matter how big, a reality. To get started, visit getprovide.com to see how our tech-enabled small business financing and banking can work for you. Again, that's getprovide.com for when your aspirations of business ownership exceed traditional limits. I'm Corey Brown, and this is Provide's The Path to Owning It podcast. We're back with Lauren Parker, co-owner and CEO of Slide 9, to discuss how to handle phony online reviews of your small business. Now, Lauren, this is a topic that's becoming, unfortunately, increasingly common. What strategies do you recommend for small business owners to handle and mitigate the impact of negative online reviews?
Yes, it is such a good question. And as a small business owner myself, you care so deeply about your brand, your business, your organization, that when you see something online, especially if you feel like there are inaccuracies in what you're reading about someone else saying about your business, you can take it so personally. My first piece of advice is if or when you see a negative online review, you have to be able to detach yourself from the feelings that that person had in the moment that they were writing it. Because for the most part, every 100 people that go to the dentist have a great experience. And then it's the one person who maybe was having a bad day and didn't have a stellar experience. And they're the one that's going to take to the internet to share their opinion. So
Sure.
It's never a fun experience, but you have to just stay calm and professional. You want to make sure that you do want to respond. I think it is in your best interest to show that you are paying attention and that you are able to take critical feedback in stride and to heart. So if you are going to respond to a negative review, try to not do a tit for tat response to any of their complaints and try to point out inaccuracies, even if there are any. We always try to really recommend acknowledging their point of view, apologizing that they did not have an experience that was up to the standards that you set, and very politely and respectfully see if you can take the conversation offline. So say, hey, here's my email and my phone number. Please give me a call. I'd like to learn more about your experience and see what we can do to improve the situation. I think that alone oftentimes goes a really long way, either with that individual person who might say, oh, wow, I didn't think anyone was going to read that. And now they're reaching out to me, and you might be able to turn them around. But even if they're a lost cause, I think others that see that you took the time to respond are going to say, hey, that is a business that cares, and not everybody's perfect, but I appreciate that they're actually trying to do something with that feedback.
Yeah. I've dealt with this a lot in previous roles, and I so know that feeling of being so close to it and taking it personally, right? So I've caught myself responding and thinking, oh, I'm just like this person. I'm in the moment and I'm in my feels. I should just pump the brakes a minute, right? But you do see a lot of that. And sometimes I feel like you see it be successful when the review is maybe so over the top. If the owner responds in a way that's almost comical, I think people reading it are like, oh, yeah, okay, that person was just off the rails. I think this
Yeah.
person,
Well, and you're exactly right. And I think that we say respond to most, but not all. I think we
yeah,
all can tell when the trolls are trolling. So if there is a post that is just so flagrantly out of bounds and not coherent, that is
yeah,
so directly trying to provoke, then that's not something that you need to engage with. But if you see the opportunity to acknowledge that maybe there is something that didn't go perfectly well that you can learn from, I think acknowledging it is wise.
yeah, I would agree. Let's switch this into more of social media and comments. What role does social media play during a crisis or in a maybe review situation? And how can businesses manage their messaging effectively across all different platforms?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yes, social, I think the last 5-10 years has totally changed the game when it comes to reputation management. That's a lot of what we do for clients as just a baseline service we offer is media monitoring and trying to just make sure that we're helping them stay on top of brand mentions. Because to your point, social is often where it's not always necessarily where the crisis starts, but it's where the crisis can spread.
Yeah,
When times are good and you are consistently offering valuable information, you're actively engaging with your audience, then when things do go sideways, the hope is that you will have built up enough goodwill with your online community that you won't necessarily have to be the only one that is defending your honor. Where we've seen this work best is actually when your audience really starts not only giving you the benefit of the doubt, but also chiming in. And I'll give you an example. We've done quite a lot of work with an electric utility company. And just like the cable, you don't even think about your electric utility provider until the power goes out.
sure.
So we had monitored over a number of years in working with this company where, from a strategic storytelling standpoint, when business as usual, we tried to really focus on humanizing the line worker and really telling the stories about the men and women that are getting up in the middle of the night when the power goes out, leaving their family and driving down to Florida when there's a hurricane and mass outages. So trying to let people know that when the power goes out, there are people that are going to go out there and try to restore it. And we've seen in tracking our social media analytics over time, when we do have outages across their territory, more often than not, instead of saying, I hate my utility provider, a lot of people are taking to social to say thank you to the line workers going out in the sleet and snow and helping to restore our power. So we've been able to see an actual sentiment change where we have done so much work to really shift perception and build that goodwill that when things, I mean, talk about a business that is essentially guaranteed to have have challenges that,
Problems, right?
and it's a strategy that's worked really well for them and one that I think businesses large and small could take note of.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And that is the truth, right? These people are doing that we don't even think about. So just highlighting that I think is so smart. Speaking of that and kind of online reputation, are there any tools or resources you can recommend for small business owners to monitor their online presence and spot potential issues or successes, like you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. First things first, Google Alerts are free and effective. You want to make sure that from a monitoring standpoint, you're thinking through what are all the variations of your brand that you want to have alerts for. Just making sure, again, if your organization maybe is sometimes referred to by an acronym, you want to make sure that you're setting up Google Alerts for all of your key executives, for any of your products or services tied to your company's name. That's just kind of baseline at no cost to your business other than taking 20 minutes to get those set up. And those can just be running in the background and will hit your inbox if and when something hits. There are other tools that you can pay for, like Hootsuite, Sprout Social, Mention. There's a bunch of different social listening platforms. The pay for play approach offers a lot more analytics. So if that's something that you feel like would be valuable to your business, Those tools are out there, but you really don't need to spend a lot of money if you're really looking just to track brand mentions. So you can put together a pretty successful tech stack with just some of those free tools that are at your fingertips.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lauren. And, I guess finally, I would just like to ask, what advice would you give small business owners who want to build a really resilient PR strategy to handle both crises and just everyday reputation management?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Again, preparedness for a crisis or even an incident is really going to be your insurance policy to give you that step forward when something does go unexpectedly. Because if you're going to be in business for years and years, there is going to be something that's going to come across your desk that might catch you off guard. And there is a lot of data out there that shows the faster an organization responds to a crisis or an issue, and the more authentic and transparent they are in doing so, A, the faster they will recover, and B, the stronger the goodwill that they will build with their audiences. Because while it's easy to go online and share a negative opinion of a brand or an organization, if you see that an organization is genuinely trying to address a problem or issue, you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and hopefully come back around in terms of your customer loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely. Lauren, if anyone listening today would like to hear more from you and have you help them with their preparedness plan of their own, what's the best way for them to connect with Slide 9?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us on our website, slide9.com, spell out 9. It's AP style. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, Lauren Parker.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. I think what you've shared is really going to help any organization and their PR strategy. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. The path to owning a business is a nuanced journey. We hope you discovered something in this episode that eases your path to success. If so, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Have a topic you'd like discussed in a future episode? Drop us a line in the comments section or send us a message on social media. If you're ready to take control of your future and start building your legacy, be sure to visit getprovide.com. You can view our resources page for more helpful tools, learn how our all-in-one financial and banking products can help you on your path to business ownership, and pre-qualify for financing in under 2 minutes with no impact on your credit score. The path to owning it is brought to you by the team at Provide, and it's produced by PodCamp Media, branded podcast production for businesses. podcampmedia.com. Producer Dusty Weiss, editor Harrison Fonder. For Provide, I'm Corey Brown. Thanks for being on the journey with us.
Provide is a division of Fifth Third Bank, National Association. All opinions expressed by the participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Provide, its affiliates, or Fifth Third Bank. The participants' opinions are based on information they consider reliable, but neither Provide, its affiliates, nor Fifth Third Bank warrant its completeness or accuracy and should not be relied upon as such. This content is for informational purposes and does not constitute the rendering of legal, accounting, tax, or investment advice or other professional services by Provide or any of its affiliates. Please consult with appropriate professionals related to your individual circumstances. All lending is subject to review and approval.